Hi everyone, I wanted to come on and talk a little bit today about stress and anxiety because right now we are in the midst of a very obviously stressful situation, and I wanted to talk about some strategies that I use myself because I think they might be something that you might find helpful. Now, I suffer from anxiety, I have done for a long time. So there are strategies that I use myself that I found really beneficial and that I'm actually using at the moment as well. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about in this video. Now, before I go any further, I just want to check that I have gone live correctly and see if I can see whether the live video is working, because I'm still not brilliant with these. Yes, perfect. So if you've got any questions, you can ask them in the comments box down below, and I'll be checking them on my other device so I don't miss any. But yeah, I'm talking a little bit about ways that I find helpful to manage stress. Now, right now, I am having to self-isolate because last Wednesday night, my husband started coughing and started having symptoms. Now, we have no idea whether he's got COVID-19 or not. Hopefully he hasn't. But obviously we're following the government guidelines and self-isolating for 14 days. So it's myself, my husband and my 2 boys. So it is a little bit stressful at the moment, trying to keep everywhere clean, trying to sort of keep everybody apart, although I'm not even sure whether there's any point in doing that because we all live in the same house. But obviously that has made me a little bit anxious, I'm sure you can imagine. So there are things that I use myself to help, and I wanted to share those with you. And the first thing I think is really important is to acknowledge how we're actually feeling. I think, it's normal to feel stressed, it's normal to feel anxious. And I think if we try and sort of suppress it and try and talk ourselves out of it, then sometimes that's not always helpful. So I always find it really helpful to think about, okay, this is how I'm feeling. What can I do about it? What strategies can I draw upon to, help myself feel better and to manage it? So I think always that's the first thing, is to acknowledge how you're feeling and then take steps to do something about it. And the first thing I always do is look at my breathing. And if you come to our Pilates clinic, you will know there's a sign on the wall that says, "Don't forget to breathe." And it sounds daft, but breathing is one of those things that we it's a strategy we can use. It's simple to do. We can do it absolutely anywhere. Obviously we breathe all the time anyway, but looking at our breathing and taking some steps to check our breathing, we can do anywhere. So I'm going to run through that with you in a second. But the reason that our breathing is important is that when we are stressed, when we are anxious, our breathing actually changes. So it's completely normal. It's part of our fight or flight response. Going back to when we had to deal with situations where we had to actually physically fight. So it could be, I always think of fighting a bear, although I think I'd probably run away from a bear. But going back to those situations where we would have had to stay and fight or we'd have to run away, our body has a way of responding to that stress to prime our body. So it primes our muscles, it increases our breathing rate, gets our heart pumping, so we have the tools, if you like, to be able to deal with that situation. The problem is our body only has one way to respond to stress, whether that is a big grizzly bear or the stresses of the situation that we're in right now. And in the short term, that stress response is really helpful because it helps us deal with what's happening. But when the stress goes on over a longer period, it becomes less helpful. So using strategies to reduce stress and reduce tension are going to be really useful. So I'm going to go through with you now. This is just a breathing technique that I use myself and that you can have a little go at. Now I'm going to lower the camera because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So you might lose a bit of my head, but bear with me. Okay, so wherever you are, if you just think about just sitting comfortably in the chair, you can do it in standing if you're standing. And I want you to place just one hand on your upper chest and one hand on your tummy. So I know you can't see very well because there's not enough room on here, but imagine there's my tummy. So, and just relax your shoulders. And the first thing I want you to do is breathe normally. Now, That's going to be hard in itself, because when we start to think about breathing, we suddenly can't do it. But just think about breathing normally, and I want you to notice where you're breathing from. So are you breathing more from up here? Are you breathing more from down your tummy? I also want you to notice how much you're breathing. So, are you breathing quite quickly, or is your breathing nice and relaxed? And I want you to also notice how deeply you're breathing. So is your breathing quite shallow, or are you breathing quite deeply? And at the moment, all we're looking at is we're just seeing what's happening. So don't worry about anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. We're just literally seeing where we are right now, okay? Then what I want you to do is to place both hands on your tummy, let your shoulders relax. And I just want you to start to take a bit of a longer breath. So we're going to breathe in through the nose. Just take a little bit of a longer breath in and breathe out through the mouth. And as you breathe out, just let your shoulders relax a little bit. I'm going to get you to do that again. So I'm going to get you to take a breath in through the nose. Just take a slightly longer breath. And if you can, just hold it just for a couple of seconds. And then breathe out. And again, just let the shoulders just gently relax. I'm just going to do that once more. So we're going to take a longer breath in, slightly deeper down into the tummy this time if you can. Hold for a few seconds. And then breathe out. Lovely. Then I want you to just relax your arms just down by the side. Just think about just breathing nice and gently. So you don't have to be taking a deeper breath, but just try and get the breathing down into the tummy if you can. And then I want you to just let your shoulders come up towards the ears. And then I want you to really think about just letting go of any tension. So let's just gently breathe in. Let the shoulders come up. Breathe out and just let them relax down. We're going to do that once more. And then let go. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to bring the camera back up so you don't have to look at half my head. Or that might be a good thing, I'm not sure. Now that is something very simple, very quick that you can do. And all it does is it notices how we're breathing. And the act of just trying to slow our breathing down a little bit, take a longer breath, it just can help just to reduce the stress a little bit. The shoulders, we tend to carry tension around our shoulders and our neck, and we don't tend to notice it until we start to get sort of a bit of discomfort, or we get a bit of pain. So doing that little and often throughout the day is really, really helpful. So what I would do is to try and do that throughout the day, even if you're feeling okay, 3 or 4 times a day. If you do start to feel that you're starting to feel anxious, or you're starting to feel a bit stressed, then just stop. Just notice your breathing, take a few of those deeper breaths, or I tend to say longer breaths, so you're not wanting to take massive deep breaths, but you're sort of taking that longer breath, and you'll take a deeper breath naturally that way. Think about getting the air down into the tummy, let the ribs expand, and then just gently breathe out. A couple of shoulder lifts afterwards, think about letting the shoulders relax, getting rid of any tension, and that will just really help take the edge off it. And it's almost just like switching it off a little bit, if you like, just to relax everything down. Now, I've also got a breathing meditation that I'm going to pop the link to under this video. Now, don't be put off by the word meditation. It's literally what I've just done with you now, and it's just talking you through it a little bit. But you can have it on your phone, so you can just literally, it takes 3 minutes, you can press play, you can do it for 3 minutes, and then you can get back on with your day. So I'll pop the link to that in the comments below this video, so you can have that at home and you can do that anytime. So that is the first strategy that I use little and often through the day, and also if I notice myself getting stressed, which I often do. I'm using it a lot at the moment. So that's my first tip. The second thing is to keep moving and keep exercising. And right now it's really hard because the gyms are closed. I had to close my Pilates clinic last week because I knew that it was the right thing to do. I knew that getting people in a group together was not going to be helpful. It's not going to be the best way to tackle this situation. So on Tuesday evening we made the decision that we were going to close the clinic. When I say closed, we have temporarily suspended our classes. We will be reopening, but we've just had to suspend classes for now because obviously it is the right thing to do. But that means that I've left hundreds of people where they normally come every week to be exercising, and they're not able to do that. So I've had to change the way that I'm working, and I'm doing a lot of online classes at the moment. And you know, a lot of us are stuck at home, so we're having to change the way that we do things. And change is hard, it always is, because our brain likes to do things the way that we've always done them. So when we try and make a change, whatever that change is, it's difficult. And I think exercise is also one of those things, it's much easier to stick to if you're going somewhere to do it and you've got a regular routine. So when we're having to maybe do that at home and make changes, and we've got other people in the house with us, it does make it hard. But exercise is so important, and you know, it can boost your mood, it can make you feel better, it can help manage stress and anxiety. You know, we get endorphins produced when we exercise and when we move, which can help with our mood and just make us just generally feel better. I mean, added to that, you've got the benefits of just keeping the body moving, keeping the muscles strong, keeping the joints moving. There's so many different benefits of exercise, and yes, it's harder now, but there are still things that you can do. So right now, the advice is that we can still go outside, we can still go for a walk, but we need to do it responsibly. So if we are going to go out and exercise, we need to be keeping at least 2 meters away from other people. We need to be, you know, not going out in groups. We need to be isolating ourselves so that we're keeping ourselves safe, we're keeping other people safe as well. But getting outside and exercising in nature has shown to have lots of benefits, not just the exercise, but the fact of being outside can make us feel so much better. So that is something that we can still do. So I would encourage you all to get out every day and go for a walk in a safe and responsible way, so we're taking care of everyone. If you can't do that, if you're not well or you don't want to do that, even just getting out in the garden, you could do a few stretches in the garden. You could do that breathing meditation that we've just done, sat out in the garden in the sun on a chair or something like that. Anything like that, being outside can really, really help. If your garden's big enough, you could have a walk around the garden. My son last year had to have spinal surgery, and he was obviously really had to build up his exercise levels, and he couldn't go out very much and walk. So we used to walk around the garden. So the neighbours saw us, they probably would have thought we were crazy. But we literally used to come out, he'd have a couple of laps around the garden, and then we'd go back inside. And that was enough for him. But just the act of doing that and getting outside actually made him feel a lot better, as well as getting the benefits of exercise. So yes, it's different. Yes, it's not the way we normally do things. But if we can keep moving, it's really going to help with our mental health, and it's also going to help with our physical health as well. On that note, as I say, exercising at home is really, really important, and there are classes that you can do at home. I'm moving my Pilates classes online. So as you know, Pilates Health Online's been around for a while anyway, but I'm going to reopen my membership. So those people who normally go out and exercise but still want to keep doing something and still want to be doing things to help manage stress, I'm going to be looking in the next couple of days at reopening the membership. It wasn't going to open again until May, but I'm going to reopen it early and give everyone a free trial as well. So if you want to try it, see if it works for you, see if it's something that you can build into your life, then you'll be able to have access. And I'll be talking more about that in a few days' time. But yeah, definitely exercising at home is what we need to be doing. I said already, when we go out to exercise, it's much easier to stick to what we're doing because we've got that commitment. You know, it's 10 o'clock on a Monday, say, and we go out and exercise. We have to go and do it, and we've made that commitment. If you're going to exercise at home, make that same commitment. Try and have a bit of a plan. Try and have a bit of a routine. You don't have to be doing it every day, a couple of times a week, but try and have a plan of what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and then try and stick to it. Because if you have a plan, you are much more likely to do it. If you just say, I'm going to exercise at home, the likelihood is you won't do it because it's you haven't made that commitment. Whereas if you make that commitment and say, right, I'm going to exercise Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to do a 15-minute class, then you're much more likely to do it. And I always say to people, write it down, because there's something about writing it down that makes you much more likely to do it and to stick to it. Now, excuse me. I've had a cough for weeks, so don't worry. But yes, if I cough through this, I do apologise. So that's it, exercise at home. So that's my second tip. My third tip is something that I've been using for a couple of years, and it's journaling. Basically, it's just writing down what's in your head. Journaling is a posh fancy word for it. But I have a little notebook that when I get stressed, I go and write in. And it starts off a bit like a brain dump. So I literally just get everything that's going on in my head down on paper. And I'll be completely honest, it's for my eyes only, because it does start off like the ramblings of a crazy woman. But gradually, the more and more I write things down, the more I think I start to work things out in my own head, and it really does help. But there is not a tendency, but there is the risk when you do that you could get into this sort of negative spiral, because you're sort of obviously brain dumping everything onto paper. But if you are feeling stressed, then that could become, that you get more stressed. So I do have some rules for myself, and as I say, these are my rules. This is just something that I do. My first thing is get everything down, get it out your head. The second rule is then I start to think about, okay, is there another way that I can look at this situation? What would my mom say? I think that's always a good thing to do. Ask what your mom would say. What would your mom tell you? Or your best friend. What would your best friend say? And try and look at what's going on from a different perspective. Because sometimes I think we can get so stuck in our own heads and so anxious that sometimes it's hard to see what's going on. So just getting it out of your head and then trying to look at it from that different perspective can be really, really helpful. And then my last rule is I always finish with 3 things that I'm grateful for. Now, it doesn't have to be massive things, right now I'm grateful that I have loo roll. It's always good. And I'm grateful that I have food in the cupboard, that all my family's together. Yes, we're self-isolating. Yes, it's stressful, but there is still so many things that, we're well, we're okay. There's so many things to be grateful for. So I think that's something that really helps me. So it's worth giving it a try, but you definitely need some rules. So yes, get everything out of your head, write it down, see what that looks like. Then start to think, well, okay, could I look at this from a different perspective? Is there a different way I could think about this? What would my best friend say to me? What would my mum say to me? And then try and finish off with 3 things that you're grateful for. So you might be starting off from an anxious point of view, but you're trying to sort of turn that round a little bit and just change your perspective. So that's my tip number 3. That's something that I've used for a couple of years, and I will not show anyone that book because, it is the ramblings of a crazy person half the time. Okay, so my last tip, and again, these are just tips that I do. I have stopped watching the news because, to be quite honest, it just overwhelmed me, and I think there was so much information, constantly bombarded with different things, and even just sitting watching it, I could feel my breathing rate change and my heart rate change, because it does stress you out. Now, that's not to say that I'm not keeping informed with what's going on, but I'm doing it on my terms. So I've chosen that every day I will keep up with what the Prime Minister is saying, what their updates are. So that is one thing I do. And then I will go onto the government website or the NHS website again if I want to, and I can check to see what's going on and what the latest advice is. But I'm doing it on my terms. So it's not stressing me out so much. I'm not being constantly bombarded with everything all the time. And it's not constantly just bringing up my stress levels. So that's something that I found helpful. And I think that, it definitely has made a difference, especially right now when I am stuck at home and I am self-isolating with the rest of my family, and, you can't get away from it. I've chosen to take myself away from it and just go and look at things on my terms when I want to. So those are my four tips, really. These are all things that I do use myself, that I find helpful managing my own stress and anxiety. I did the breathing technique before I came live with you, because although I do more lives now, it still stresses me out and I still have to take a couple of deep breaths before I start. So they are things that I do myself. So just to recap, the first one is the breathing. So trying to just stop, take a few longer breaths, notice how you're breathing, try and do it little and often throughout the day, try and just do some things to just get rid of any stress around the shoulders, and use that as a technique. And as I say, I'll pop a link to that below this video. Second thing is keep exercising, keep moving, try and do some exercise at home. It's really good for us, it's good for our immune system, it's good for our stress management, it's good for our muscles, our joints, everything. And you know, what we're going through right now won't go on forever, and we want to do all the things that we can now, so that when there is a time when we are going to get back to normal, you know, we can just get back to normal as quickly as we can, because we've been keeping up with those things to keep us healthy and keep us, you know, our mind healthy and our body healthy. So that's my second tip, is exercise. You can get outside, go in the garden, but make sure whatever you're doing, that you're doing it responsibly and you are following the government guidance. Then we've got journaling. So you're writing everything down. You're trying to get everything out of your head, but making sure you've got those rules where you're getting out of your head, but then you're looking at it from a different perspective, seeing what would your mum say, what would your best friend say, how could you look at this differently, is there another way of interpreting what's going on, you know, the information. And then finishing with 3 things that you're grateful for. So we're literally trying to change our perspective a little bit. And then the last thing for me that's worked, again, just my personal opinion, is to stop watching the news. Watch it on your terms, watch it when you want to, but stop that constant bombardment, because I don't always think it's helpful. And again, that's just my personal opinion, but it's definitely worked and it's helped for me. So thank you very much for watching. Please stay safe, look after yourself, take care. We are stronger together, so let's keep supporting each other, let's be here for each other, and let's keep going. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.